Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder of Streamlined Properties and the team leader of Streamlined Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. Whether you are looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Welcome back to another week of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. I appreciate you being here. Thank you. And this week we have a great guest. And before we get there, I want to give you just a couple reminders. You're probably used to this by now. If you're liking the podcast, the best thing you can do is subscribe to it wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave a 5-star review. Share with your friends. If you're watching our 10-minute clips of each episode on YouTube, ring the bell there so you get those notifications as well. This week, we have Cameron Barsanti. He's going to talk about how he learned to live the storage life. He started as an actor and screenwriter. Now he's all in on self-storage. Let's go. This is episode 54 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Cameron Barsanti. Cameron is the founder of Storage Life. He went from 0 to 35 million in self-storage in just 2.5 years after dabbling in multifamily for about a year. Cameron, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jonathan, thanks for the intro. Yes, dabbling is appropriate.
Yeah, well, but before you started to dabble, did you have an interest in real estate before the time came when you got into real estate?
Great question. And I'll answer that. And I do want to say real quick, again, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Enjoyed a couple episodes recently, especially a fan of your podcast. One, I think that sticks out just for your audience.
Yeah.
I went and re-listened to, I think it was Alyssa Hallbrook, episode 34, I believe, but just neat story. And talk about, you just love when you hear stuff. I think she started investing when she was like 14 years old, something like that. Yeah. So anyway, just got a kick out of that one, especially.
Yeah, that's awesome. She'll appreciate the shout out, and I do as well. Yeah, podcasts are so cool because you can really learn so much. That's why I was so excited to have you. We've touched on self-storage here and there, but we love to talk to people who have an expertise in the space and have been through, all of the different parts of it. And you've definitely gone through and figured out like what your niche is, right?
Yeah, totally. And, it's funny because although self-storage has gotten a lot more popular, of course, and a lot of big money's been entering the space for the last decade, it still surprises me for as good of an asset class as it is that not as many people are in it that you'd think, right? Especially people that are already seasoned in multifamily. And obviously, I do understand that maybe sometimes when you have, your niche, you stick to it and you don't want to necessarily diversify too much. But at the same time, they're very similar in terms of demand and market and all the research that goes into it. But yeah, just to answer your question originally, dabbled into, about 3.5 years ago, I actually was not doing real estate at all. I was an out-of-work actor that was writing screenplays and just lost my wife's life savings in a feature film that I had produced. And so we actually, and I kept, dragging her through the mud like, oh man, the screenplay, but, and I was shopping around and definitely get some activity, but she started listening to podcasts. And so we quickly started learning that you could actually invest with little to no money. And so we pulled out equity in our house and started looking for multifamily. I'd hired a coach right away. I've always had a coach in real estate and leveraged all of their information, what they were buying, where they were looking. And so that was kind of the springboard for us. And so we quickly bought a triplex in Texas, an 11-unit in New Mexico. And that's what led me to my newfound passion and second love, and that's a self-storage. And we stumbled upon a bank-owned self-storage facility, and that's, again, a little over 2.5 years ago, and we currently own 10 in our portfolio, but that's really how we got here today.
Yeah. So. Awesome. Do you ever, I know I have a lot of friends in entertainment. Do you ever look back and think now, like, were you working something else for the future when you were in entertainment? Because I know like a lot of people get into, my son's an actor, you get into it and you think like it's going to go big, but like, of course, for everybody, it can't always happen that way. Were you thinking then about real estate or what was going to come next? Or was it like, we need to pivot because we need to find something that's going to, be our nest egg for later?
Yeah, fun question, Jonathan. For me, I didn't really want to do anything else. And part of it was just my lack of, I think, education and even financial education. So my parents are both realtors and come from a real estate family in that sense. But I knew nothing about investing. And I didn't know all the tricks of the trade, right? The leverage and the syndicating and anything like that. And so I never was interested. And I was really kind of tunnel vision, like, oh, I only want to be in the entertainment. Nothing else sounds fun. I don't want a real job. And, it's sad, but I was really more stuck than anything because I felt like I didn't have another opportunity that excited me. And I'm stubborn, and I felt like I just wasn't going to give up, and eventually that I'd work in the business. And, that's fine, but not when you have a family, right? Not when you have a wife. And so that's really what changed things drastically, is going, hey, look, my wife going, hey, sure, I believe in you and I want to support you, but not really. Like, you got to start making real money. It takes forever. We produced a feature film. It took 3 years, right? When I tried to get back into the acting game, I was 30 years old, and just to build a couple of TV credits and do a couple of bad movies took years, right? And man, it's crazy how long things can take in the industry. So.
Yeah, especially after the pandemic, and then theaters are down and everything's different. So the entertainment industry has wholly changed over the last, few years with streaming. So it makes things, I guess, more available in some ways, but less available in others.
Totally. Yeah, it's shifted a lot. Yeah.
But now that you got into this and you've had 2.5 years in self-storage, do you feel that same passion for real estate as you had for entertainment? They're completely different businesses, but like, are you feeling that motivation, which helps you guys lead to now coaching people in the self-storage space?
I feel like I was born to do what I'm doing now. It's in a much, I think, larger scale and more meaningful way. I'm an artist for sure. I love it. And I plan on probably shooting a couple of films down the road for myself, for fun to myself, my scripts. I love that part of it. I love filmmaking. For acting, I enjoyed it and I thought I was good at it, but I wasn't necessarily a diehard, right? Like, I was kind of a lazy actor, to be honest. And so now, in relation to self-storage and real estate, I'm changing people's lives, including my whole family's, right? And so it's allowed me to pretty much do whatever I want. And, we're just getting started 3.5 years in real estate, but we've moved very fast. I spent literally 40 to 60 hours a week doing it since we made that shift, 3.5 years ago. Right. And so we've been fast and furious. We've leveraged, partnerships and mentorship and everything we possibly could. And so now, you mentioned it, but I coach people how to invest in storage. I have airline pilots, doctors, nurses, policemen, several firemen. And so, like, the fact that I actually get to take these W-2 hardworking employees and change their trajectory for the rest of their lives, there's nothing like that. Yeah. It means the world to me. I love my job. I love working from home. I love seeing my kids every morning, every night, reading stories with them. And it's been phenomenal. We're very grateful for what we're doing now.
Yeah, and it's more secure because you know that there's a physical asset. You've not only do you have the land available in case the asset falls apart, you have the land, but you have assets, and self-storage is easier to build than your traditional multifamily. It's going to cost less. You need to take into account what you're going to do with it. But if you found that self-storage is a better fit, a lot of people say, look, less people. There's less people to manage. There's less bathrooms, less possibility for disaster. Is that what attracted it to you? Or was it like, this is really a good money play?
When we started, I was going to these meetups in LA. There's like, 50 people and all these podcasts, and everybody was syndicating multifamily, right? Yeah, everybody was still on the ride up. And even though I was very excited for the opportunity to start buying real estate long-term, building long-term equity and long-term wealth, and all of these other things we were learning, that was really exciting. So I was excited, and I was green, right? Like, I didn't know what a title company was. I didn't know really the idea of a bank loan, even though my wife and I lived in a house that we owned. And, so for me, just learning leverage educating myself more on financial education and real estate. That was very exciting, but I'll admit that I wasn't like, oh, multifamily, like I'm really attracted to it. I was attracted by the opportunity, and I was more intrigued by mobile home parks and self-storage.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I think maybe because I didn't hear as much about them, right? Just like trailers and sheds. There's something weird about it that I liked. And so when I stumbled upon the first facility we bought, it was actually bank owned, and I was cold calling looking for multifamily. And my friend and partner, AJ Osborne, he has a podcast for self-storage, and I listened to like 8 hours of his podcast on my way to look at this property we were buying. And I remember coming back from the trip, and I was like, this is it. To my wife, I said, man, I'm all in. There's the opportunity in self-storage is massive. Lots of mom and pops, more mom and pop owners per ratio than, in multifamily, right? Like 60% are still owned by mom and pop. And so I saw a massive opportunity, typically very indecisive by nature. And I was like, I'm all in. And I never looked back. We went all in.
Yeah, it's a good point. When we run lists for self-storage, we delete all, multi-owners. We're just looking for mom and pop. They're the best to talk to, even if you don't make a deal, because they know the business. You usually go in and like their systems are like on paper. I don't know if you're like, really? You don't have like a, computerized system? They're like, no, we just write the rents down here. We've been in those meetings just being like, okay. So that's harder to underwrite like that.
Oh, yeah.
But have you found that underwriting is like the most important thing in self-storage ever? Because to underwrite the mom and pops, you have to ask them a million questions because they don't even know what they don't know, what they're leaving out of the underwriting.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that when we're looking at a deal, we're vetting it from many different directions, obviously doing a market analysis. Storage, the big thing of storage is supply versus demand, right? So what is the current supply versus the current demand? Different metrics you can use, square foot per capita, stuff like that. But as you analyze the market and the supply and the demand and, who are you next to, or, your location, all very important stuff. At the end of the day, I think the decision always comes down to your spreadsheet, right? Your underwriting spreadsheet. And getting started, there was deals that I passed on strictly from, I think, fear and lack of experience.
Yeah.
And luckily had the opportunity to circle back to a couple of them and go, man, I guess I just don't get why we're not buying this. It's penciling out. Looking at these spreadsheets and these numbers till we're blue in the face and just going, you know what? This thing pencils out. And so at the beginning, a lot of it, again, was fear-based, that then somehow you'd find a way to maybe start working on something else.
Yeah.
and then going back and going, wait a minute, we've done our job. We've done our due diligence. We've underwrote this thing like crazy. And it's still penciling out, and then you pull the trigger, right? And so the longer you do it, the easier it gets, but it all comes down to those numbers is when we pull the trigger or not.
Yeah, I agree. Like for small scale, not counting large scale, I feel like people are too in the spreadsheets, but like for self-storage, you have to be in the spreadsheets. It tells you everything you need to know. Let's talk about a couple of the things that you need to do up front. We're talking about due diligence for self-storage, and like traffic patterns are really important. What kind of drive-bys you're getting. And then like you were saying, how many other storage units are in the area, what their occupancy rates, what their rates are. That's how you really start to balance out like what's going to work for you in a certain area, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're value add investors, just like most people are, in terms of we're looking for the opportunity to go in and to operate a facility like it's never been operated before, including raising rents, right?
Of course.
So obviously for us, a big thing is what is the current operator or current owner, I should say, getting in there in rents, and then what's the market, right? So if Jane Smith is she's charging $55 for her 10 by 10s, but we know that based on our research that market says all the local competitors are closer to $100. Well, we're looking at a potentially almost a 50% under market, unit. And so for us, a lot of it is the meat on the bone, right?
Yeah.
Wow, check this out. There's demand in an area. It's not oversupplied. And yet for no real reason other than it's maybe an owner that's had the facility for 20, 30 years and they just don't want to raise rents, right?
Yeah.
So we go in, we do a little bit of value add, maybe paint. We're going to automate the facility. So we're going to add gates, keypads,
Yeah.
Better lighting, better cameras, software. Like you said, a lot of times it's pen and pencil, bookkeeping. So we're going to automate everything, including the software, the program. And then we're going to actually outperform most of the local operators, right? We're going to have an online presence, Google Maps presence, and go in and then implement all of our value add. And on the top of that is raising rents. Another one would be potentially going in and having a facility that has room to expand. So we're going to value add that way. We're going to add a couple of more buildings and fill them up. Or the first facility we bought was a partially converted furniture store. And so little by little, every 10,000 square feet, we would actually add climate control to it. That was a neat facility. When we bought it, it was making about $2,800 a month. And within about 2 years, it was making $22,000 a month. And that was value add by expansion, right? So that's really kind of primarily what we're focused on.
Yeah, and with the mom and pops, there are a lot that have expansion options just because they never really cared. Like you said, they're fine just getting what it is. But there's a lot with extra land where you can put 2 new rows if you're doing outside. The interior, again, depends on the building construction. But outside, I've seen a lot of opportunities for value add. Pretty easy to bring them in, too, if you have the space. And then, like you said, the automation is so important because I think that's what people who want more secure places for their valuables, they want that access. And then as an operator, it's so much easier for you when somebody doesn't pay, you just lock them out. You just turn their card off. They can't get access. It's why storage is so good. Cool. You didn't pay. Great. Now you just can't get your stuff, until you pay. And that's the difference. Like of course, people are storing their stuff, but you don't have to deal with tenants. There's usually only one bathroom in a facility. So potential water issues only come from sprinklers. So when you've got that bank-owned property, is that the one that was in a furniture store?
It was, yeah. So it was such a neat kind of lucky experience because we got to go in and see somebody who had already implemented the idea, which was lucky, right? We got to go in and see that somebody actually had this kind of cool idea to convert this storage. And so they had already had the building. There's a 30,000 square foot warehouse and a 20,000 square foot warehouse. And so the first 30,000 they had, I think if it's over 20, you have to get a full sprinkler system. So they already had it divided into 3 to get around that. So the firewalls were there. The central area was converted. It was like 40-something% occupied. And so we basically kind of had a turnkey opportunity, right? And that's to go in and go, oh, wow. So this is neat. Look at this facility. They're gorgeous, brand new units. And then have the space to just slowly kind of conservatively expand. And that's what we did. And so it was great. Each partial conversion, we did HVAC, electrical, and then the units. The units took about 3 months to get. And then the local installer would be doing about 9,000 square feet in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops. So the longest delay was actually waiting for our product, right? Our steel from Tracti. And then after that, we were up and running. In 4 months, we had literally brand new, beautiful climate controlled units. And that was in an area that was full to the brim. So we knew the demand was there.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the one thing that everybody who doesn't know about self-storage doesn't understand, raising prices on self-storage is the easiest of any investment portal out there because you can keep raising them a little bit. Nobody's coming to get their stuff. I know this because I have I don't even know how much my storage unit costs, and I'm annoyed because it always goes up a little and it's never enough for me to go down and take the stuff out. And that's part of it. But you can keep getting more value out. I think there's gamesmanship on the larger ones, but still, for $20 raise a month, I'm not renting a truck, putting all my stuff in just to go get another storage unit when it's all the same price. It's a great business. Have you had has there been anything in your 2.5 years in self-storage that has been like the biggest trouble point in terms of either acquisition or management?
For us, it's been scaling. We had the ability to find quite a few off-market lucrative deals. And so for us, it was actually that we were buying more deals than we could potentially operate ourselves.
Yeah.
And we pulled it off, but it was definitely a juggling act, right? And then it got to a point where we were like, man, we're not going to say no to an opportunity, but we got to figure out how to actually scale this like a much more professional, put together team. And so we brought on an operational manager, which helped a lot. But a lot of our facilities were running remotely. And so it's neat because you're stacking in terms of, I have one offsite manager that's answering the phones for 4 facilities, but it costs us the same amount of money as when she was only operating 2 facilities. And so then we add another facility, but we don't have to pay her more. She has the time to answer those phones.
Yeah,
and
it's the same.
It's the same setup. So for us, the structure of remote management and then the ability to oversee our portfolio the way we need to, right? Tracking KPIs, tracking performance, operations, rent increases, all that stuff. And because we were finding such great deals, on one hand, at least I felt like, okay, there's definitely things we could be doing better as operators, but we were buying facilities at, 3.5% money, right? 4% money. And so for me, my mentality was, let's buy as many as we can. And it worked out, right? Because now we're not paying that. But that's been the biggest challenge, scaling internal operations versus how fast we were scaling. And it's one of those things I think I hear everybody talk about is like, how do we know what our team's supposed to look like when we've never been there ourselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's your acquisition strategy now? Are you focused on states and then running lists in those states for the mom and pops? Or are deals coming to you now that you guys have 10 facilities? Or both?
A little bit of both, primarily just our own deal funnel. We've spent a lot of time on acquisitions. I learned at the very beginning of even multifamily that if I could find good deals, I could leverage everything else, right? Partnerships, capital, lenders, everything. And so for me, I was always finding the deals and using that to bring the deal together for the most part. So we've spent years perfecting our deal funnel. I'd say it's a small little machine right now. We utilize our wonderful VAs. We have a full-time employee that we pay, 6 figures to help us with our acquisitions. And we're just doing a lot of outreach, right? So we're typically moving state by state. Our methods are the same as probably any other method in terms of, whether we're sending mailers or texts or phone calls, it's all the same kind of stuff. But I think our strength is in, we started a single family home wholesale company about 2 years ago. And that really taught me a lot about looking for deals. It taught me that it's one thing to be able to start getting leads, but it's another thing to actually be able to organize them efficiently, prioritize them appropriately. Let me reverse that. Prioritize appropriately, organize efficiently, and then follow up consistently. Because that's the key. I think in wholesaling especially, but even in stores acquisitions, the game is really played on the follow up.
Yeah, and I really agree with your first point that you moved up to number 1, the prioritization, because and if you're good on the phones, you can get a lot of people on the phones if your skip tracing is good, but you still have to figure out who's going to be a real appointment and who's not. When I was doing like at the max, my most off-market acquisitions, I was using something that was getting me a lot of opportunities, quote, appointments, but like most of them sucked. Because the people were like, sure, come out. And then they're, way over value. So I really like that. I think that figuring out like who's your top 10, who's your top 20, like which is our next real target for who we want to acquire. And then you focus more energy on that. Let the VAs take care of the other stuff as you go through. Did you find that your personal skills on the phone were better because of your background in entertainment?
I don't think so. I think for me, And by the way, Jonathan, what you said is important, right? Like really being able to analyze what a deal looks like, right? And that's been something that you think it's black and white, and it's not. There's so many. We do a lot of reading between the lines when we're talking to sellers.
Yeah,
especially when it comes to how long they've owned the facility. Maybe they're elderly, right?
Yep.
Maybe today they're giving it to their kids, but maybe in 30 days. Somebody else has it under contract. I've had that happen. It was 2 months instead of 1, but believe me, yeah, as you know, it happens. But the entertainment, I don't know. I think the only thing it really did for me was I think that it was a long, drawn out struggle that I wasn't really living to my potential, and I knew it, and I was stuck in it. And so I think for me, it was more that the struggling, I think, prepared me for the day where I saw massive opportunity and didn't think twice and took it. I'm a people person. I love talking to people. I love talking to new people. I'm genuinely interested in what they have to say. Yeah. And I like to make them feel good because it's actually natural. Like I'm not forcing anything. And so that's something that I think that's always been one of my few strengths. And that's probably what's taken me the furthest, is really genuinely being interested in the people that I'm talking to, whether it's in person or over the phone.
Today's show is brought to you by Streamline Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. That is my on-market real estate team. We are investor friendly. We work traditional buyers, sellers, but we also work the investor sphere all the time. House hacking, short-term rentals, flipping, long-term holds, anything that you want to do. We're experienced in that arena. We work the whole state of New Jersey, Philadelphia County in Pennsylvania, Elko County in Nevada, and the Catskills region of New York. So whatever your investor needs are, you can count on us. You can go to streamlined with a D .properties. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, I just think, like, from my friends who are actors, like a lot of people in real estate acquisition, they're like, oh, I really get banged up on the phones. And I'm like, think in my head, like, yeah, try going on like 100 auditions and getting said no to your face over and over, because that's what it really is. It's a consistency. Can you get up and just make a call again? And as an actor, like auditions are insane. You walk in, there's like 80 people who look just like you, auditioning for the exact same role. And it's just like a commercial. You're like, holy, how can there be so many people going out for Head and Shoulders? But that's the way it is, right? Do you feel that experience kind of helps you when you have a bad call because people just tell you to screw off? You're like, oh, well, that was fun. Go on to the next one because you want to help someone.
The entertainment business can be brutal. It really is. I think I was more exposed to like the actor side of it. And it's just, there's a lot of weirdness, and there's a lot of strange people in the business, even big, like, I worked for celebrities, and I was a private bartender, and I think behind the scenes, it's all the people that matter, the editors and the writers and stuff. But in the front of it, I think there's some strangeness. Yeah. Yeah. And so there's also so many people that move to the Hollywood every year, or New York, that they're chasing one dream, and there's not a lot of camaraderie. So the funnest way to compare both of them for me is that when I started in real estate, everybody was really friendly. And actually I had great conversations you'd think you could have in the entertainment, but I didn't. Yeah. And then people that were seasoned and 20, 30-year investors actually saying that they would be willing to help me out and actually partner up with. It was amazing. It was like the best thing that ever happened to me. And I was so blown away by that, how normal and nice people were, and that, they genuinely wanted to help out. And I think a lot of it is, part of why I'm teaching now too, is like, this changed my life. It changed my family's life. And now I get to give back. Right. Yeah. And I don't think the industry's like that. And I think I have a lot of empathy, especially for actors in the spotlight. I know a lot of working actors. Some of them have had phenomenal careers, but it's a grind. Yeah. And most of them are not making that much money. Yeah. And then you get to the point where your people are recognize you on the streets. Then your life, I don't know if it ever is normal. And so again, if my kids, told me that's what they wanted to do, it wouldn't be that I wouldn't let them, but I would make sure they understood the more important parts of life, which is, I think financial education and the discipline to create something. Because, if my kid wanted to be an actor, I'd probably make him run a couple of my facilities first, right? And say, hey, look, if you want to be fine, but I'm going to have you do this. I'm going to have you set up a platform for yourself where then you can go do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so you're not so desperate and you're not so dependent on somebody else actually making your career.
Yeah, exactly. My son just finished at T. Schreiber in the city, the 1-year program, and now he's ready. He's done a bunch of stuff, but like he's also going to get his real estate license, comes with me, learns about properties. That's what I did when I was younger. So I really feel like that transition and is important. Want everyone to be able, like you. I'm sure you're happy that you followed the dreams of the stuff that you want, but now you found something that's also more asset based. Like you can feel it, touch it, you can see it, you can run the spreadsheet numbers on it and know like we have rents coming in this month, as opposed to, jobs which can just fall apart in the entertainment industry and at any point.
Yeah. Just the stability is really important. Yep.
Yeah. So, was your wife interested in real estate investing, or was she just kind of looking for something that could bring scale to the family over the long term when you were going through that time in the beginning?
She was extremely interested. She has a neat father who he was Filipino. They were in Guam, and he was a full-time accountant, had a, tough childhood. And then not until his 50s started spending his weekends investing in real estate. And so he built his little empire late in life and basically coached her to say, hey, multifamily, passive income, this is the way to go. And basically said that this is what you'll do one day. And so she actually was the one that was teaching me about that. We just thought we had to have a lot more money to invest.
Right. Yeah.
And that's common.
Yeah, but I feel like you made a really strong decision for yourself by getting coaching right away. It doesn't work for everybody, but it seems like you were knew going in, like if I either pay or get this coaching, like I'm going to do it. And that was like just the extra like push forward to say like, hey, we're going to invest in ourselves to do this. Do you feel like that helped you dramatically because like you said, you realize like, wait, actually regular people in real estate investing, like they do want to help, which I've experienced many times over the years. It's really, I think investors are great. They're not all great, but the ones who are playing in the higher levels are always happy to help if you bring them something good to talk about.
Yes, good coaching is invaluable. We would not be here without our coaches. I've had a coach the entire time, first multifamily, then self-storage. I tell my students, in my opinion, if somebody comes to me and asks me what is the secret to succeeding in real estate, I'd say it's momentum. And the more you can create, the more successful you're going to become. And the momentum, and for me, it came down to 3 things. It came down to my mentors, my partners, and then first and foremost, my deal flow. And I can't express enough how important that is.
Yeah.
My coaches taught me how to look at deals, where they were looking, what were they using, what did their spreadsheets look like, how were they funding stuff. So it was this immediate, not only education, but a soundboard, somebody who I could actually leverage their many years of experience. And then because of my deal funnel, my deal flow, I was then bringing in opportunities. And those opportunities, I wasn't scared to look at. All of a sudden, I was looking at $8 million deals only because of my coaches, only because I had this new confidence and the group that they came with. And then surrounding myself by these other people that were either wanting to be in the business or be in it. And then with your support from your coach and your group, your opportunities from your deals, then you started leveraging partnerships. And the synergy between really these 3 things, these key elements for me, it was a complete game changer, 100%.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I think that sometimes newer investors who are looking to get in, they hire coaching or they get into a program in the hopes that it will do all the work for them. But like you guys went into it knowing like we're going to do the work, and that's why you've been able to scale so fast. You're coachable. You like to be coached. and you're willing to then take what the coach tells you and immediately put it into practice. That's always the difference, because you can go, like you've probably seen like in your coaching cohorts or something, and even with your students now, you have like, these are the people who are going to do stuff after we have the call. Here are the people who come back the next week and have literally done nothing. And they're like, well, I thought it was just going to like, the calls where they were just, everyone's going to call me and offer me properties. Like it doesn't work like that. It is a grind. But like you said, if you put those three things together, then you create the momentum. You just can't take your foot off the gas because it can stop real quick.
That's right. Yeah. You said it. They're only going to tell you what to do. And actually, I suck the life out of my coaches. I still have a coach. I'll always have one. And I leveraged and squeezed out everything I could. And I expect my students to do the same, right?
Yeah.
And so, for me, it was like, oh my God, I get another call or group call next week. And I made the most out of it. And I was paying for it. And most of the time we couldn't afford it. But we listened to the people that were much further along than us, the Brandon Turners, the people, take some of the biggest professional sport coaches in the world. They have their own coaches, right? So everybody that was a high performance we kept hearing them say, hey, I wouldn't be here without our coach. And so our mentor, and we took it to heart and we ran with it. But you got to be careful. You can't expect to go and find a coach and it's going to change your life. I really strongly recommend people that you have to go get a coach, but it's your job to find the right one. Find the one you connect with that sounds that's making sense, that you believe in, because you're betting on the horse. Yeah. And ask questions, talk to other people in the group, whatever you have to do to make sure it's the right fit for you.
Yeah, it's a great point. And social media can make people look like a great coach, and that doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. So I completely agree. Can I talk to a couple of the students now? That answer should always be yes. You should be able to talk. What are you getting out of the program? How does it work? And you can tell who's motivated, because it's an interesting space. Social media has made everybody look like a rock star in real estate investing. It's obviously not true, but I think like over time, you realize how small the real estate investing world is. Everybody does know everybody at some point, and that's where the bad actors, can get found out over time. So Where do you guys want to go from here with Storage Life? You're doing great. It's only been 2.5 years. What's the plan for moving forward, over the next few years?
So we'd like to double our portfolio in the next 1 to 2 years, at least. We have great partners behind us. We've got a great track record. We have now a team in place. Our acquisition side's strong. It needs to be stronger with bigger properties.
Yeah.
And we want to keep acquiring, keep operating. We're in 4 states. I'm under contract on something in Florida right now, looking at a deal in Texas right now. So we're going to just keep expanding, and we're full time. We're all in it between my investments and my coaching, storage. I'm all in, and they're equally of value and important to me. I love the time I spend doing both. So I'm going to keep scaling our acquisitions, our operations, as well as my program. So
awesome. So if a brand new investor or a seasoned investor who's never dabbled in self-storage, wanted to get into self-storage, where should they start in terms of like figuring out what to do? Is it a book? Is it a podcast? Is it finding a mentor right away? Or just to get into that? Because it's very different. It's just not like the other asset classes. You really have to be focused on it. I think it's a hard class to be just like dabbling in.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned dabble, because that's the one thing I try and prevent from happening to everybody, right?
Yeah.
Because the dabblers, 6, 12, 24 months down the road may feel like they've actually tried to invest or get into storage, but that it just didn't work out, right? So I'm very much an action-based coach in terms of like, I want people to start moving the forward immediately. And so you mentioned, do they go get education? I say all of the above. Because basically what you're looking to do is not only we're always going to be learning, right? Like no matter what the asset is, no matter how big of an investor you are, you will never stop evolving. Your team will never stop evolving. The market and real estate itself will never stop evolving. So education is always going to be part of the game, right? And we'll always be learning as much as we can. But I would say simultaneously 100% find somebody who can actually, that you're going to pay enough to where it's going to hurt. It's going to sting.
Yeah.
And you're going to make sure that you don't ever miss a meeting. You don't ever miss a call. That every time you know you have a call with your coach or your group, that you've spent as much time as you can the following week. So you're making sure your investment's paying for itself and consuming self-storage, right? If you're going to invest in it, you have to surround yourself by it. You have to surround yourself by the people that are doing it and constantly educating yourself. It's got to be on your thought list daily, if not a couple of times a week. And it has to be, you have to learn to understand where you should be spending your time, right? Most of us have families. A lot of people have jobs. And so you have to understand that if you only have a limited time, we all have a limited bandwidth every day or week. What are the tasks you should actually be doing to propel your career? And whatever those are, they need to be on your calendar. You have to have somebody holding yourself accountable. You have to create a system that will allow you to move the needle forward and progress on a weekly basis. And going back to the momentum. Otherwise, I think it could be a very long and discouraging road.
Yeah. Yeah. I think short-term thinkers have a real problem because they were expecting things to happen so quickly. And you really need to put in the work. One thing I wanted to touch on before I hit us up with the last questions is I really like what you said about like sucking the life out of your coach in a funny way, because like that, you should be the person who comes to all the coaching calls with all the questions. Like that's what you're paying for, especially if it does hurt to pay. Like you need to get your value out of it. And those coaches who coached the student who has all the questions, you're always going to end up partners in the end because they're the ones who are paying attention. They're growing faster than everybody else. So being that person, that's a good tip for others. Like, don't feel like you can't ask questions. You're paying. Ask all the questions so you feel like you're getting the most out of it. Then you won't worry about the money. And like then deals will start to happen afterwards. Have you found that, in your coaching when you watch the students, the ones who ask the most are always going to be successful the quickest?
Oh, I mean, yeah, 100% without a doubt. Yeah. Some of them are impatient like me, right? I can never go fast enough. And so they're dying to rattle off their questions, right? And, but yeah, you see it pretty quickly.
Awesome. So if people want to get in touch with you about your coaching program, they should go to storagelife.com.
Yeah, that's fine. And honestly, it's about the program or just about storage. I love helping people out. Maybe, I'm not the right fit for everybody, right? My students are, we formed a team, right? We're action takers. We help each other out quite a bit. But if somebody even has a question about storage or they think it's something they're interested in, if I have somebody schedule a call, we'll jump on. I love helping people out, and they can find me on my website. I'm also more and more active on Instagram, and that's just Storage Life Cam. They can find me and message me there. But yeah, that's a great place to find me.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, man, it was a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for giving us all the self-storage knowledge. It's been a great ride. I personally look forward to staying in touch with you, watching where you're going to be in the next year, because I think it's going to be double, like you said.
Thanks, Jonathan. It's a pleasure. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
I really appreciate that you said at the beginning, you brought up another, a guest on the podcast that you listen to. I mean, that's why we make podcasts, but it's just, that was really nice. I really appreciate that. Alyssa will appreciate it. She's a great coach as well for investors. And it's nice to know you were listening as well. So look forward to staying in touch, and thanks so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you.
All right. That was episode 54 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. I'm Jonathan Green. That was Cameron Barsanti, and we'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with me, Jonathan Green. And I just want to remind you, and this is always an uncomfortable part, I don't want you to think that I'm begging for you to like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do for the podcast, leave a 5-star review. But if you like the podcast and you think it adds value in the real estate investing sphere, then just do me a personal favor. Like the podcast, follow it, share it when you can with your friends, and be so kind as to write a 5-star review if you believe it deserves a 5-star review up against what else is out there. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you keep listening.